the inspirational message. We must find time. Cindy, Dr. Cindy, thank you so much.
Yes.
That was fantastic. So I do want to recognize all the hard effort that you put into all of this, so thank you very much.
You guys
Above and
are
beyond everything else that you do.
Thank you.
So we do appreciate it. Thank you very
And I want
much.
to publicly also thank Ms. Ryan and Ms. Gargiulo, who are not here this evening, for their service and
Yes.
dedication to the board.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, inspirational message. We must find time to stop and thank the people who made a difference in our lives. Isn't that true? John F. Kennedy. Bulletin board recognition. We have a beautiful bulletin board over there. It's by Miss Christina Ferrara's class over at Camp Avenue School, so everybody can take a moment to take a look before they leave. We also have next on the agenda the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve October 9th, both the monthly meeting, the audit committee meeting, and then also October 30th policy committee meeting, October 30th special meeting, and the revised versions with the time amended of August 17th.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next one is item number 6, approval of warrants, budget transfers, and wire transfers as detailed in the mailing. Do I have a motion? Okay, do I have a second? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approval of treasurer's report. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are up to public comments section. Any person wishing to make comments or raise questions shall come forward to the microphone and state their name and address. Questions are to be addressed to the board president, not to individual board members. Personal attacks on individual board members, administrators, and staff will not be tolerated and may be caused to adjourn the meeting. There will be no back and forth dialogue. Out of courtesy and fairness to the rest of the audience, each visitor will limit his or her remarks to one item lasting no more than 3 minutes, not to exceed a 30-minute session, or ask only one question. Public discussion on matters relating to staff and students by which the reputation, privacy, or rights to due process or those of others could be in some way violated is prohibited. This is not limited to agenda items. We have removed that restriction in case anyone has families, they can come up and ask their questions early. And I do want to remind that questions may be asked. If we cannot answer them right away, then we will be able to make sure that the district clerk has your contact information to make sure everybody gets their answers to their questions. Questions?
Oh, questions or
Comments?
comments?
Questions or comments?
No, I mean, I can get up.
Yes, please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
I'm a friendly voice, don't worry. Chris Midkish, 1667 Central Avenue. I was at the last Board of Ed meeting. It was very long. I'll be honest, I listened to everything that was said. It was very late. I was tired. I really, really wanted to go home. And I digested a lot of what I heard. I heard a lot about contract negotiations, programs, chopping blocks, art music wings. I got the impression that there were facts that couldn't be spoken about or that were restricted in some way. And I appreciate the board's attempt to be transparent about what's going on with the budget. I heard the legal team make comments about Board of Ed members that shouldn't be speaking about certain things. I heard the superintendent, who's always very informative, talk about programs that aren't going to be cut. Some would be revamped, some were going to be enhanced. I don't believe the board or the administration, parents, teachers, or anybody wants to eliminate art, music, wings, or anything else, but I believe, that we need to understand what was being spoken about. And with the lack of information, it leaves the public very uneasy, and I think that it would do a good service to get it out of the way early in the meeting, because we don't want to go 3 hours. If someone could understand or maybe explain why the item was tabled, it was on the agenda, and then I don't see it on the agenda today. So I'm just, as for myself and maybe for other people, if we could talk about that exchange that happened at the last Board of Education meeting, to understand what was really going on.
For programs? Is that the-
Programs.
Programs. No, absolutely. And the intent is to have a work session specifically on programs, correct? So as soon as time allows, we'll be able to schedule that work session, so it'll be an open forum for the public to view conversations specifically on that. So I do appreciate that feedback. Any other questions or comments?
We can't hear anything. The mic's not.
Oh, that one's not working?
I think it is working, it's just. Hello?
Oh, there we go.
Maybe
Right
tilt
into
a
it.
little bit. There, better? Yeah.
Can everybody hear now, okay?
I think part of the problem is it's hard when you're back, it's, you
Yeah.
don't really want to hear also. So I guess we're not gonna get an answer on her question, will she get an email, or how will we know?
I need your name and address.
Sorry, Franca Gerard, 1940 Carroll Avenue.
Thank you.
Is that how it will be handled?
Well, we can do definitely if there's a specific question that's addressed to it, we definitely want to make sure that the district clerk has contact information to address a specific question. This one was specific in reference to tabling programs, and that was that there will be a separate work session associated with that. So
Was that your only
it will
question?
definitely be discussed.
Just the tabling?
That was my question.
Sorry, it's the
Okay.
dialogue.
So what I wanted to say was,
But you can definitely,
yes.
okay, definitely come up and answer.
Okay, I just wanted to, on positive comments, I wanted to thank the residents who are filming the board meeting. These meetings are so hard to get to. My husband travels all the time. These meetings have gotten really long, a little contentious. I don't really feel comfortable bringing my kids. I've done that a couple times, so I just want to thank them. I'm really happy that we can all see it, so no one's relying on rumors. Everyone can see for themselves exactly what was said, what happened, make their own assessments, and do their own follow-ups. So I think it's a really great idea. Thank you for doing it, and I hope everyone takes the time to watch it and pass it on to their friends, because we only had, I think it was 10% voting turnout in the last board meet. So I think anything that gets us all more involved and paying attention is only a really good thing for this district.
Okay, and is there any other comment for the board, or?
My comment is, I like it, and I hope
Okay.
it continues.
Perfect, okay. Thank you. Very good.
Jane Perfer, 1810 Naval Place. I want to know, I'm here to ask you all about if the fourth graders are going to receive the furniture, the innovative furniture, whatever you would like to call it, that is currently being used in the third grade classrooms, because I've heard that that is going to be implemented. And if so, when will it be implemented? And how much furniture will we be receiving in the classrooms?
Okay, let's definitely make sure we get her an answer to that.
You can't answer that now. Obviously, you know.
I don't actually.
You don't know.
We don't know, that's,
You want to answer?
yeah, that's what's in it.
Hi, Ms. Kerber,
Yeah.
how are you? We pushed up a few pieces to fourth grade from third grade. Nothing more has been ordered at this point for fourth grade. So I know you asked if you're getting more, or if you're getting it, whatever's there now is there. You asked when, there is no when because we haven't ordered anything additional. Did I answer all your questions?
Well, I mean, currently, as far as I'm aware of.
Oh wait, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Where'd you hear it?
I heard it and then I asked.
Okay,
because
no, I
my
just
son-
didn't know if it was at a PTA meeting or something, that's why, because I just wanted to kind of,
No, not
Solve
at
it,
the PTA
okay.
meeting. I heard it and I just went straight to the source and I did
Okay, I
ask,
appreciate that.
the principal of the school, but I'm coming to you to ask because my son does have an IEP and he did not do well with that furniture last year at all because it, in my opinion, doesn't do any justice to many, many students. It's a distraction, it doesn't help them. So if that was the case, if you were going to be pushing this furniture up, I need to know to take
No.
care of certain situations and arrangements, and also to find out if you were purchasing new furniture, how much of this is coming out of the budget as well.
and we're not.
Because
you spoken to the teacher?
Yes, but as of, that was
Okay.
last week.
Okay, so nothing's been ordered, so nothing's coming, so there's no date to give you.
So there's no date. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your feedback.
Okay, name and address?
Hi, my name is Megan Katz. I live at 2110 Van Nostrand Avenue.
Megan, can you speak up?
Yes. So I'm here because I'm primarily concerned about previous budget cuts and future budget cuts that have been discussed. I have a first grader and a fourth grader at Old Mill Road. My first grader, I have noticed last year that guided reading was cut. There were multiple guided reading teachers for my fourth grader. I believe there were at least 3 at Old Mill Road. So between the 3 guided reading teachers and the classroom teacher, they were able to split the kids up into 4 groups and work with all of the kids at the same time with guided reading. This definitely helped not only the lower readers, but also the higher readers, because it was now more split up and they could really direct it towards them. I know last year the guided reading teachers were, I guess, let go. No discussion, nothing was told to the parents other than the classroom teachers continually telling us, sorry, there's no guided reading teachers. So we're doing the best we can. But there was no communication with the parents, which was difficult. So one of my questions is, were the guided reading teachers let go? And if so, how was that money reallocated? Because that would have been a significant amount of money. And then as far as future budget cuts, that's my main concern. I'm hearing that programs such as art, music, and wings might be cut, and I wanted to specifically discuss wings because it was discussed at the board meeting in more detail. So first of all,
Can I address guided reading first?
Yes.
Guided reading teachers were not cut. We adopted a reading program, Ponte Centinel Classroom, grades kindergarten through 3rd grade, which has a guided reading piece in it for the classroom teachers. Our guided reading teachers have been reallocated to the upper grades. So the guided reading program looks differently. The teachers were not cut. And guided reading is now implemented through our reading program, Ponte Centinel Classroom, by the classroom teacher.
Okay, so, but for the younger grades, they're no longer getting the individualized guided reading, which helps those at the lower or higher end of the spectrum.
Well, they're getting it in the classroom,
But from the one teacher, for the whole classroom.
from the classroom teacher, yes.
My
Through the program.
understanding from the teachers was that that's a significant decrease, simply because there's one of them.
Well, you could tell those teachers to contact me.
Okay. As far as the future budget cuts, I am a parent of a child in Wings. I've been very impressed with the Wings program, and he's only been in it for a short period of time. At this point, he's in the 4th grade. I have to say that it's the first time of his tenure at Omar that I have felt that he has been addressed as far as his needs as a gifted child. I feel like he's very easily overlooked, which I'm sure a lot of parents feel, because they get the information. So they don't need the extra time because they get the information. At this point, I see him being challenged. At the board meeting on October 9th, a comment was made about looking at the WINGS program and making it more efficient. I think that we all know that that means cost efficient.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but in light of time, I'd like to address your Wings question. Wings has been enhanced and improved over the last 2 years. There have never been discussions about cutting it by the Board of Education or myself. As well as in teacher negotiations, there's never been any discussion of cutting programs such as Wings in light of teacher negotiations. I'm very pleased to hear how happy you are with the program, and I hope that addresses your concerns.
I would just like more information on what you meant about examining it to make it more efficient, because I'm not interested in my child having an efficient education. I'm interested in him having a complete and challenging
Well, when we talk
education.
about efficiency, we also talk about student travel from building to building, and now we have the program in 2 buildings, and it is our hope to have it across the 3 buildings, which would make the program more efficient.
So you're not planning on cutting anything about it?
Well, personally, I cannot answer that. That's a discussion amongst the Board of Education. We're entering into budget season. but a program that we've enhanced and improved over the last 2 years. Obviously, we look to sustain, maintain, and improve every program from one budget season to the next. That is the goal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Kathleen Wagner, 160 Cameron Avenue.
I'm sorry, Kathleen, say the last name again.
Wagner, W-E-G-E-N-E-R. Hi, how are you? I'm coming to you just to talk about the idea of a library media specialist. I too am an educator, and I've been really doing a lot of research, talking to my own school, because my daughter came home with a project in the 6th grade that had her cite, do citations. She had no clue how to do it, never even talked about it. So I went back to my own school and other districts, and they're being taught this in library. They're being taught how to reference. What's the difference between a reliable source? My daughter was just graded, part of her rubric was it a reliable source, and was it annotated? She never learned how to do that. She never knew how to do a Google Doc. We just put Chromebooks in the 6th grade's hands, which are amazing, powerful tools, but they don't have the digital citizenship that have being taught in other districts, K through 12. I went to my MAMS meeting last week, and it was really apparent how. It's on. What can you do?
Right now.
It was really apparent how South America and North America are coming together in MAMS with totally different skill sets. Their foundations and curriculum are different. So you have kids in South America that are beyond our kids in North America, and they're coming together in MAMS, and our students are really at a disadvantage. And these library media specialists, that's their job to teach this curriculum. And I actually was fortunate that my district sent me to present at the Nassau Suffolk Library Association, where I was able to connect with librarians around Nassau and Suffolk County, and we're really not doing a great job in that area. Doing wonderful jobs everywhere else. Great job. But it's just an area that we can really do improvement, and I'm really seeing it now that my 6th grader is going to MAM. She's at a real disservice. Thank you, everything else. It was a big improvement.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anna Higgins, 2142 Burke Place. Thank you very much for clarifying about the last board meeting and certain programs being cut, not cut. Just so you know, from a public resident standpoint, when we're sitting in the audience, sometimes it's really hard for us to follow what's going on, and you guys may know what you're talking about, but we don't, and that's where the confusion comes on. And so when people come up here and ask questions for clarification, and it's hard when we want an answer, and instead of answering the question, you guys take it under advisement. And I know it's difficult, again, where we sit is one thing, where you sit is another, and I can't begin to understand how probably difficult it is where you are when you're having questions volleyed at you. But perhaps you may want to take under consideration actually answering the questions from the residents, because we're here taking time out of our families, and to sit here for a 2-hour-long meeting and then get up here and ask a question not to have it answered, it's infuriating, from our standpoint. So if it's something you can take under advisement. Also, is there a way that you can clarify for the public or the residents what school programs the district actually funds or runs, and also the extracurricular activities?
Say that again?
What school programs other than art, music, and wings that the district actually runs, and extracurricular activities are provided by the district? Do you understand my question?
I understand your question. Thank you. I don't know if we want to get into a list of extracurricular activities at this point.
Well, I'd like for you to get into a list if that's
Or
possible.
can we take that as, would it be acceptable for us to take it as a follow-up, and then we do it at next month's meeting, or email it?
If you could email it and maybe read it at the next month's meeting, because I think
Okay.
that would really be helpful to the
Okay.
residents to know. Because a lot of people don't know which programs are run by the PTA versus the district.
That's
Well, I just want to clarify art and music. Art, music, and physical education is part of the school day.
Yes.
That's separate from extracurricular activities.
That I
And
understand.
clubs and district-sponsored events versus PTA-sponsored events. That's what you're asking for.
No, actually, I know what the PTA sponsored events are, but I think a lot of people sometimes in the residents don't know that they think some PTA sponsored events are school events. It would be nice if we can have a list of activities that the children know, these are the programs that are in school, during the school, and these are the extracurricular activities after school that the district runs.
That's a great idea. Like theater arts.
Right.
Parent University,
Parent
that's the district
University,
run.
the Spanish club on
Yeah, a lot of
Saturdays.
those are
Yeah, that's a
not
good
during
point.
the school day.
I know that.
Oh, you
Those
did
are
say so,
extracurricular.
that's why I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify for you, because you would say during the school day, so that's
So,
different.
That's why I separated programs versus extracurricular activities.
Right.
So the programs are during the school day, and the extracurricular activities are outside the school day. Does that make sense? Am I saying it wrong? Am I using the wrong terminology?
It's just, half a dozen, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But I just didn't want you to think that during the school day, when children are taking art, music, and phys ed, that we decided to run those programs. Those are part of the school day as part of the curriculum.
Right.
That's all.
And
Yeah.
the reason why I'm asking that is because, again, at the last board meeting, there was talks about trimming, and I just wanted to clarify which trimming did it apply to programs versus extracurricular activities.
Okay, I'm actually glad you said that. This is segueing into the superintendent's report, but we'll make sure we get to we definitely want to talk about that in reference. We have a comment on that too.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Shannon Schaefer, 1637 Hendrickson Avenue. So I wanted to follow up on the extracurricular activities because at the last meeting, it was talked about that they were trimmed. And so I took a look at budget line items. So I see, and I would like the actual numbers, and I want the numbers to be clarified because the budget is very extensive, but sometimes it's not clear what goes where. So I see 32,000 less in extracurriculars, but then I also see 20,000 added to a salary for theater arts, correct?
That was just, do you want to move that part of your superintendent's report to now?
What we do is we created a separate budget line for theater arts, and we took that money, we removed it from the code, it was in the previous year, and that's where you see the $32,000 cut, and we took 20,000 of it and put it in theater arts.
Okay, so 12,000 then in total is trimmed from the extracurriculars.
Well, trim is a very,
What
different
we-
word. You may want to talk to this a little bit more, Mr. McDavid. Do you want to talk to it?
I want to talk a little bit
Yeah, go
About
ahead.
the budget process, just very quickly. When you begin a budget process, what you actually do is take a look at each code line by line. When you're looking at that code, you look at what was budgeted in that code for the year, and then you look at the actual expenditures, what was actually spent out of that code, and then you actually look for historical trends of spending. And that's how you create how much money to put in that code the following year. It's when we say trimmed, it's basically looking at a code and seeing if the amount of money that's been budgeted in that code over the last 3 to 5 years was the most accurate budgeting at that time. And if it was not, where our expenditures did not meet what was budgeted, you bring that budget line down the following year.
Right,
So trimmed is very
when
different.
So nothing was cut, there was not a program that was cut.
Right.
The numbers were adjusted based on the historical trend of spending.
Understood, but it's 32,000 less, 20,000 for theater arts because that was moved. So you're saying there was like an extra 12,000 left over that we weren't spending at all on extracurriculars. So no extracurricular program was affected by the trend.
No, there was no extracurricular program affected by the process that we used, absolutely not.
Okay, so I would also like just, in a follow-up to Anna's question, a list of the extracurricular programs, or we don't call them programs, the extracurricular activities the district provides. And can we also get with that list how much is spent on each extracurricular?
So you want the budget line broken out?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Right.
And any
that's
further
right.
questions?
If I may.
The business office is always available to also answer. I know there was a phone call today, and I know Mrs. McDade got back, I think it was Ms. Higgins. Very open to answering any of those questions as well.
Correct, but I also think it's great to come out in the public comment section and.
I'm just
let the
giving you a
whole
second
community-
option, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not afraid to make a phone call and ask a question, but I think it's good for the public to hear and public comments and better understand it, because the budget is very extensive, but the line items can be a little unclear what's included.
It can be very confusing. The budget season is coming up, Do we have the dates that we want to announce for the budget meetings? Because those are also the best time to drill down into each individual line item. It's perfect, because that's when all the planning occurs as well. So if there's concerns in reference to specific items on the budget, those budget committee meetings, I think we may have been.
I was, and so was my husband, and when we asked questions, we were shut down. So if we're going to involve the community in those budget meetings, I think that we could have a more extensive question and answer session.
For those.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's
Okay,
good.
so my specific questions are a list of the extracurriculars and how much was spent on each extracurricular. And I guess how much was spent the year before on each extracurricular?
Yeah, okay, 3 years would be fine too, because we do like a 3 to 5 year spread.
Thank you.
And those dates are February 11th and March 12th.
February 11th, those are the committee meetings?
Yeah, February 11th and March 12th. The
Do
budget
people need to be on
calendar.
the committee to go to meetings?
No,
I'm sorry.
you can do the meetings.
Thank you.
Yeah, the budget calendar will be put forth for approval by the Board of Ed in December. That's it.
Hi, Jean Coughlin, C-O-G-H-L-A-N. Jean Coughlin, C-O-G-H-L-A-N. Thank you. I know it's spelled wrong. Because we're talking about programs and enhancements and cutting and trimming, I wanted to bring up language. I too have a child going into MAMS, and we are at a great disadvantage. South Merrick starts language in 4th grade. Many other districts started in kindergarten. I just think we're really missing the mark here. Anybody who has been in business, I worked for several huge global companies, and I worked with people, all of them, that spoke 4 languages. So we really have to get in front of this. I mean, my daughter is going to be out of OMR, but I really think it's something that you should consider, because I think it's one of the most important parts of any additional programs. I think it should be as special as art and music, and we're missing the mark. We're not helping our kids. If they're going to go out in the business world, they're really going to be at a disadvantage. So I think, if we're talking about different things to add or consider, I'd like that to be considered as well.
Great, thank you.
Can we ask non-budget questions?
This is over.
So, my name.
Oh, yes, name and address.
Yeah, Rania Elbaz, R-A-N-I-A. Last name Elbaz, E-L-B-A-Z, 1649 Kensington Avenue.
Thank you.
So, I had emailed the board, and I actually saw many of the board members at the Central High School meeting last week regarding the Eid holiday for the North American School District. We have a little bit of it's a bit of a complicated situation in our district, because we have 4 boards we have to basically approach in order to get this sorted out between everybody, because of shared busing and everything else. So unlike many other districts in our area that have added the holiday to their calendar, that have 1 board that they have to approach, we have 5. So briefly, I am a Calhoun High School graduate. I went to school here. I graduated in 1996. I love Merrick. I'm very invested in Merrick. I moved back here and started my pediatric dental practice here. For the last 7 years, I've been in practice here. My kids go to Camp Avenue School in 5th grade and 3rd grade. At the time I was a student at Calhoun, there wasn't as much diversity as there is now, and at that point, when we had a religious holiday, we only have 2 that we observe in the whole entire year. And for those holidays, we usually just miss school and have to suffer the consequences. But as we all know, school has become a lot more competitive over the past, 20 some odd years since I graduated from Calhoun. And along with that, also the community has become a lot more diverse, and there's a lot of children, I know at least at Camp Avenue for sure, and throughout our district that do observe the 2 holidays. So I know New York City passed the holiday or added the holiday to their calendar 3 years ago. And since then in Long Island, I know East Meadow, Syosset, Herrick, South Hollow Hills, Valley Stream, Jericho, East Milliston, Brentwood, and
many more, I'm not gonna waste your time listing them all, have added the holiday. At this point, one of the holidays falls in the summer for the next several years, so it would really have no impact on the calendar. And the other holiday, I think we realized, you know, from looking at the next 10 years, falls on a Sunday next year, so you have a whole extra year once you approve it to figure out how to fit it on the calendar. So I just wanted to come and voice my, you know, interest in adding it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I know I've spoken with some of the board members who have said at this point, it is definitely something that's on the radar, and it's just a matter of working out logistics between, I guess, 5 districts, which we have to do. So thank you for your time.
Very good. Yeah, we can definitely mention that. We did actually have a work session prior to this tonight,
Okay.
and that was discussed. It's definitely on our radar.
Okay. Perfect. All right, there's like a merit meeting going on, and everybody, there's a
Yeah.
group of people, but everybody's split
They're
between
all
all
the
the
same
board.
night.
And and a lot of the
It's a
same
lot of
people.
discussions.
Yes.
So
All right.
yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, very good. I think we're to the half hour. Then we are up to presentations. I think, did we do that one already? Okay, perfect. Very good. And then superintendent's comments, please.
We did hit a lot of them. Again, our budget meeting dates are February 11th and March 12th. The budget calendar will be put forth for approval at the December meeting. A shout out to the North American Faculty Association for their Trick or Trunk celebration, a Friday afternoon here at Fayette. The weather cooperated, great costumes, lots of candy, and lots of fun. Thank you parents for bringing your children, and thank you faculty for making it a special day. And now you know you have to do it every year, because it was so amazing. Student Council. Our Student Council representatives from our Student Council will be visiting us at our December board meeting and sitting at the dais with our board members. We enjoyed the speeches and the whole process, the democratic process. Very impressed with what our students have to offer. We need to hear from them more about things that they would like to see in their schools because they are their schools. So looking forward to having them at the December board meeting. Our Halloween parades, again, another great day of weather, went off. The children looked amazing, the adults looked amazing. It's a tradition here that gets better and better each and every year. I think we covered Eid a little bit. Budget, I hope that I provide clarification on the trimming. Basically, I know Mr. McDade, I reviewed your presentation from last year. It does go line by line. It shows increases, it shows decreases based on expenditures compared to what was actually placed in the budget line. And we will be providing that again this year, so looking forward to those presentations. As for programs, there were no program cuts. Just to give you some examples, in art, we actually made an art teacher full-time, as well as adding a 0.5 art teacher for this year. We hired a new music teacher this year, a new ENL teacher this year, a speech pathologist this year, and we extended our physical education program as well. Extracurricular, we will be happy to provide those lists. Again, the theater arts was taken out of the extracurricular code and placed in its own code, and that showed a significant reduction in the extracurricular code for this year's budget. Wings, again, we have improved upon it, enhanced it. What we look at is the transportation, and we take a look at can we house the program in each of the buildings, and that saves us time as well as transportation costs. Again, with teaching negotiations, although it is a confidential process, I can assure the public that programs have never been stated during the negotiation process to be on the chopping block in exchange for an increase in teacher salaries, so I do want to clarify that. And there was we did have a phone call from someone regarding the bond debt. I would like to clarify a little bit about that. That came in today. Our debt service is 3.7% of our budget. Mr. McDade, did you want to just expand a little bit on our bond debt and how that process works?
Thank you. So the bond debt, we went out for the bond last year, and it's the $14.65 million bond. We start paying it back this year. The year before that, we only paid interest. The current year for the budget for the 18-19 school year, we're paying the interest as well as the principal down. It's a 15-year bond that we're paying over now for the next 15 years. With that, the expense line for that is going to be the same each year. It's not gonna go up or gonna go down. What's gonna happen is the total amount for the interest, the total amount for the principal will be the same amount over the next 14 years now. You'll see a difference of up and down. The interest will go down a little bit, and the payment for the principal will go up a little bit, but it'll equal the same. And that, one of the good things about this is that I'm very happy that the district decided to go out when we did, because as you read the papers now, interest rates is going through the roof. So by going out and not waiting like we were told that we could have done, we saved the taxpayers a lot of money with the interest rates that we do have now currently that we're locked in at. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDade. So when you add the bond debt plus our salary and benefits, which is about 82% of our budget, plus the 1% of mandatory auditing, which is mandated by the state, thanks to Rosalind, as well as our legal fees and our insurance, that comes out to approximately 86% of the budget. So there is very little beyond that. We have special services included, transportation, and then in the end, you're talking about a little over 8% for utilities, books, professional development, equipment, supplies, etc. So a lot of that, a big chunk of the budget goes to things that, such as salaries, debt service, and mandated auditing services. So I hope I provide some clarification on the budget questions this evening.
Very good. Okay, on to the business section. So I would like to do a consent agenda of items A through E. Do I have a motion? Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, then we are up to the policies. The first reading policy reading, so there's no action taken on this one for 3320 purchasing and 3320R for the regulations for purchasing. That came out of the policy meeting. Then we also have the policy 9114 of high school representative, which has been revised for the Board of Education for the review and comment. Also for first review is policy 9116 for board vacancy and 9116R, which is board vacancy regulation. The second and final reading, the Board of Education approves the second reading and adoption of the following policy 5150 for homeless children. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, personnel actions report. Board of Education approves the personnel actions report as detailed in the mailing. There's the revised one as well. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Teacher Center, the Board of Education approves the Teacher Center policy board members for the 2018-19 school year to include Chris Mitkish as PTA representative. Welcome. And
Big
do I
shout out
have
for
a
you.
big shout out? She was actually here.
Yeah, I know.
And blushing.
She's the friendly voice, as she says.
She is the friendly voice, as she says. So do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Aye. Oh.
You're like ready to do your report, eh?
Oh, that's my lead.
All those in favor?
There you go. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, special services, Board of Education, I'd actually like to do a consent agenda just for these two. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Motion carries. Report of committees, unfortunately, Ms. Gardullo could not attend to this evening. Eddie, you?
Yeah, I'll do the
you
report. So we had our Central High School board meeting last Wednesday. The external audit report came back without opinion or recommendation, which is the best report you can get from an external auditor. We're using our reserves appropriately. We're in very good fiscal health. That was a very good year. The board approved the district's request to begin legal proceedings to recoup some lost revenue due to the delay in closing of the sale of Jerusalem Avenue building. So what does that mean? It means that the Jerusalem Avenue building, closing was held up due to some complications, and legal, I think it had something to do with property lines, I'm not quite sure, but I know it was held up. And because of that, we're losing rent money from BOSU, which is still using the building. So we're trying to get the money back. BOSU's not been paying. It's kind of in a gray area of what they owe, what they don't owe. No one foresaw this delay in the closing. So we are going to find some legal ways to try to get some of that money back and see what can be taken care of. The Eid holiday did come up in public session, and I gotta say that it is really consuming us in our discussions, that we're discussing how to find a solution to this. We're looking at other districts, how they used it, possible solutions for us, so we can have our calendar accommodate that holiday as well. So we really appreciate the people who have been coming to every board meeting and speaking about it. It's a lot to be said about them and their conviction for the religion and their holiday. So we really appreciate that, and we're doing everything we can. The mold issue at JFK has been alleviated. There was some mold in the ceiling in the auditorium at JFK that was found when they were doing some work with a cooling system on the roof. That's been taken care of. We also had our board appreciation week, and we received nice planters that were made by students at Merrick Avenue Middle School. We have some new artwork presented to the board, to put in the boardroom. And we had a wonderful meal presented to us, made by the CHAMPS program at JFK High School. It was actually very, very good. Ivoroni brothers, they were probably better. And he also had the desserts out for the public. Do you have some on that, Michelle? Did you get?
No, I didn't.
Oh, the carrot cake was very good.
Ma'am's orientation.
Oh, okay, that's right, sorry. That's it.
Very good, thank you, Ed. Okay, PTA council?
Every school celebrated Red Ribbon Week. They all had their fall festivals, which was very successful. Fayette actually even had a laser light show. Each school is still continuing with their fundraising. Old Mill Road will have their book of the month this month, which is titled All Are Welcome, which teaches to celebrate diversity. Camp Avenue is looking to book their auction for November of next year, so that's really exciting. And I think the most important note here is that SEPTA membership is down. So if you're considering joining, please do so. Their fashion show is this year, which is booked for Woodbury Manor, which is March 13th. And I've attended last 2 years. It's every other year, so the last time, and it was an exciting event. And you must be a member to participate. So I highly suggest joining SEPTA this year. They have fantastic speakers. The December 5th meeting will also be one where they're having someone come in and do some essential oils and mixtures together, which is really helpful. I love my essential oils, so I could say I'll be there. Yeah, my lavender. That's pretty much it for PTAs.
Very good, thank you very much. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Carter?
Good evening, how you doing? So the bond project is wrapping up. We are in the closeout phase, receiving documents from the contractors as they close out, addressing punch list items, working out minor kinks in the systems. Systems have been working very well. Got our, the systems, the BMS system's finally working, and I can make adjustments to classrooms. Not always to the satisfaction of all the teachers, but we're working on it and we're trying to make everybody happy. The vestibules, unfortunately, have been delayed a little bit by the glass. A lot of school districts are dealing with this. The ballistic glass that we've ordered they're running 3 shifts. Everybody in America is ordering the same stuff at the same time, and this still has to come out as a quality product, so they can't just rush it. So unfortunately, I called the architect to see if anything can be done. We're not alone in this. There's a lot of districts waiting for this type of thing. So a lot of the parts are in. Once we get the glass, we can start installing vestibules and the classroom security doors. Most of the other equipment is already in stock. There were some minor heating issues that weren't addressed with the bond project. We didn't do 100%. Our maintenance crew's been doing an awesome job tackling those as they come up here and there. And We are looking forward to closing out the project so Tom can, submit to the state and start getting the EA back on that and wrapping it up and getting into the cold season, the really cold season's around the corner, so we're preparing for snow removal, getting equipment ready and stuff like that. So, kind of transitioning into the heating in winter, unfortunately.
So is the glass back ordered?
They just keep dropping dates, it was supposed to be the 8th for the Old Mill vestibule, we're working on getting another date. We're supposed to start doing the Old Mill classroom doors mid to late November. I'm hearing that it's looking like the beginning of December, unfortunately. So, the vendor that we hired to do the work has been beating them up. The architect also meets with these guys often, because they are a spec product. And, unfortunately, when everybody demands the same thing at the same time, the supply just isn't there as much as the demand, unfortunately.
Do we have a new estimated completion date?
Until we got a hard date on the glass, like once the glass arrives, they'll be here to install. And there are 3 separate orders of glass. There's the immediate vestibules, there's the doors, and there will be 3 phases of doors each school. And then there's entry glass, the main entrance at Old Mill Road. All the glass is being replaced there. So it was ordered in 3 phases, so each phase has its own date, and we're trying to extract a date from them, but unfortunately, the reality of it is they dropped the date already. They dropped the November 8th date. We're all working on getting it here as soon as possible. We've got good vendors, a good architect, all working to streamline the process. Hopefully we can maybe turn it around on the install part and expedite that and pick up some of that time we lost in the installation.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, for coming in on your vacation day.
For having me.
You're on vacation, you came in today?
Did you have a nice vacation?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
This is his second time here today, on his day off.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Go home.
They had to do your report first. Teacher Center Committee?
I was unable to attend physically, this week, Monday. I'm reading the highlights of it. I think the most important, noteworthy thing is that Christine Talbot is going to be, assisting and helping develop the web pages, which I think will be instrumental with all the teachers and getting all the information from the classrooms and more information to parents out there. So she's hosting a class and teaching other teachers on how to do so.
Very good. Perfect. Communications, we had 2 emails in reference to the holiday and social media. Not in the same email, 2 separate emails. One was about social media, one was and unfinished business. The first item we have up on here was the live streaming and recording of our meetings. So I think there was some budget information that we were taking a look at to see how much it would cost for either option. Is that correct?
Right, I had sent that information to the board, so I have it for discussion.
Okay. So we wanted to take a look at the costs associated with
It was pricey.
It was pricey for the
Yeah.
streaming. The
Yeah,
streaming was in
so-
the neighborhood of $10,000.
Honestly,
I think
based
that
on the
was a lot.
prices alone, I would not be interested in doing that.
Definitely not the streaming.
No.
Okay, and then, I don't remember off the top of my head, how much was the
Recording
recording?
is purchasing equipment and
Right.
it's not as.
To get it
It's
underway, the
Yeah,
initial
it's not as
investment.
expensive.
Right. Do we wanna look into that option?
No, I'm thinking maybe, we should pass on that for this year at least.
With all the other,
And there are community groups are
Okay.
now posting it, so let that go for a while and find a way for us to budget that for next year.
right, when we get into budget season. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. I think streaming it is an incredibly bad idea for the budget. And I don't even see where on earth we could work that in at all. But I'm good with, if people are recording it, they can come, notes are posted,
I can always email questions
as a total necessity at the moment. We have other things I'd like to see
Yeah.
first. I don't, that's a tremendous cost.
There it was.
Yeah, I just think,
Sticker shock. Okay.
yeah, it's
To make sure we're ADA compliant, et cetera, because there's other regulations that we need to go through to make sure that we're protected as a district.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for looking into it.
Okay, yes, thank you
Yeah.
very much, I do appreciate that. Okay, very good. So moving on to work sessions, these were the items that we had discovered during the work sessions. So to recap, we decided to go ahead with the goal-setting session. We were looking into further acknowledging the Eid holiday in future calendars, so that will come up in calendar-setting sessions to see how we may be able to accommodate that. Moving forward to public comment cards for next meeting, looking at the process associated with that. And that was the recap of our goal session, for those who couldn't attend in person. New business, we don't have anything for new business. I think we covered most of the items in work session. Okay. And now we come to our second public comment. The same procedure applies as the first, if there's any additional comments or questions. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Hello, Mary Keene, 1720 Sutton Place. And thank you, Board Appreciation Month. Thank you very much. I know I'm one of the sticklers here, so I appreciate your volunteer efforts. I'm wondering why at the last month's meeting, we heard that art, music, and wings were on the chopping block, and then we're hearing tonight that that's not true.
That was it was an oversight and it was a question that was posed that was
No,
not.
what I said was, in any negotiation, there are certain things that can come up and end up on the chopping block, is what I was basically trying to say. That being said, I wanted to look at the programs in our schools, because that was what you had asked, of what we wanted to look at. We've basically just looking at programs in which we've all spoken about this evening. So I will say, I think a lot of great ideas have come through in the email, and I would encourage all the public to keep sending them in as far as like perhaps what you would want to see. And once we decide on a date that works for all of us to have the program work session, I encourage everyone to come to that, because I think that that's really exciting to see what we can do with our budget and where we can go with our district.
Especially as we get into budget season, trying to make the most and maintain all of our programs and possibly enhance them the best we can.
Yeah.
I think that's the intent. Perfect.
I don't want to harp on the whole video thing, but is there any reason why that recording can't get posted on our website? If you guys don't want to film it. Oh, sorry. Franca Gerard. That's okay. I'm sorry. 1940 Carol.
I'll get it right.
That's okay.
Why we wouldn't be able to post that, yes. Because of our regulations in reference to
ADA compliance.
Didn't we just redo the website? So we redid the website and it's not ADA compliant.
I'm sorry, okay.
But when you upload a video, it has to be ADA compliant, the actual video, to put it on a website of the school. It doesn't automatically become ADA compliant,
No, that's not what
unless that's doing it, which I don't think it is it?
No, ADA compliant means your website has to be ADA compliant, so if somebody who has a disability, like who's
No,
down
and it
online,
is, but that
should be able to see
video,
it.
when I post it, will not be ADA compliant, because
Because your
it's done
website's not.
behind the scenes and then uploaded.
But your website has to be able to accommodate that, which is one of the reasons why you guys
Bonnie,
can't.
does it need to be closed captioned?
Right.
Does it have to?
How do we,
So,
But our website doesn't do it automatically, there's a program before it.
Right, but which is not programmed into your website.
Right,
That's
so if I
why-
upload that, it doesn't automatically become
Correct.
ADA compliant, that's the problem, and that's why I said unless you guys are doing it.
We
So
don't
there's
have to be,
certain-
we don't have to comply
No, I
with
was
it.
just asking if you were doing it, that's
No,
all.
no. but
Right,
you
we
guys
need
have to
to be.
comply with ADA compliance.
So ultimately, it's a website issue, it's not.
No, it's a legality ADA compliance issue.
Let's check on that and have a better
So
answer.
maybe
Yeah,
we
I can
can
definitely
deep
check
dive
with
in.
the website because I know there's a program then. So anything we do upload as a video has to become ADA
Right.
compliant.
I think it's worth looking into. I mean, obviously, we don't have money to throw around, but
Right.
the community goes to the website for information. And if you guys aren't posting the video, then where are people finding it, right? How are we sharing it? Do we really want like a YouTube station that people are going to? Station, I don't know. I think you understand my point. I think that, yeah. The more communication, the more transparency, I think it's important. It opens the curtain behind so anyone can see for themselves. If they saw the video last week, they can see this video, but how are they going to see it? If they're not, frankly, the only way they can see it is if they belong to Kona. And some people don't want to be
No,
that.
actually, it's not
That's
true.
not true.
Everything's public, you don't have to be long, you just click and watch.
That is true.
Okay,
Okay, well,
sorry.
how people are
Yeah.
gonna find where people find where it is on YouTube and whatnot. I just think even if you guys can post maybe on the website,
I could
the
definitely
link
check.
to YouTube or something, just again, I think the more information people have, people can make their own decisions and
Yeah, we
be
could definitely
educated
look
community.
into how to take your video and make it ADA compliant for our website, if that's what the board wishes.
I think that'd be great. I mean, we're not talking about serious equipment here, so.
Another suggestion or like what we had been discussing was if we had our North American Facebook page, Facebook allows you to do like Facebook Live. And I believe if you do a video on Facebook Live, it saves it. I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, there are other options that we started talking about and discussing that perhaps it's avoiding the ADA compliance because it was very pricey. But I do appreciate that suggestion, or I'm not about YouTube though, because it's public, so I don't know, like, if you're getting up and stating your
Well,
address.
this whole meeting's public, so.
No, I understand, but
Yeah.
not video, well, some people won't wanna stand up there and have their, their
Right,
address up
which is
public.
why I think that they had to go through great pains to edit out any faces and public faces, which is work that they're doing.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is, I mean, I'm grateful for it, but it is, a resident and a taxpayer doing the work of perhaps the board.
Well, I think we discussed, we're not saying it's not important, we're talking about the cost
Cost
versus the.
efficient.
yeah,
Right, well,
cost.
it's just, I mean, we're all creative people, we can maybe think about workarounds, maybe it is Facebook Live, maybe it is putting a link to YouTube on the website that we spent a lot of money on, that people we want to encourage to use as a resource, but let's really make it robust.
Right. Hey, bring up a good point in reference to Facebook, because our Facebook page doesn't have to be ADA compliant, correct?
Right, that's why
So
we
maybe
did
we
a
can
live.
look into that a little bit
Posting it
more.
on Facebook.
Right,
And that way
maybe-
the cards would eliminate saying your name and your address.
Oh, you
Yeah.
solved it.
See, the lucky one for you.
No, I
Stay
think it's
there.
the, if
Yeah.
That's good.
we move to the cards,
Right,
the
cards.
residents are stating their name and address on the
There,
card,
right,
so
it's
they don't
not
have to
public.
say
So
information.
that gets
public.
around that issue with not having to
So-
state, because honestly, I would be a little nervous coming up and saying my name and address and then
I
having
was just
to
gonna
blast
mention
it.
that.
Yeah.
And this, if you're gonna post that, please cut that out. I don't
You're
want
not
that.
in
Plus, this, we
You're
maneuvered
not,
it, you're not
Okay,
even in the
thank
video.
you. But honestly, I came up because of the address thing. I didn't
Okay.
say mine, but I didn't want my address.
Yeah, but
Okay,
your
right.
address goes
We
up
appreciate
when they
that.
post the minutes on their website, you know that, right?
And you're saying it in
Well,
public.
that's why I didn't get my address.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
really, I
Right.
think as a resident, that's really not fair, because some people might not want their address on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, this is supposed to, we're supposed
Yeah.
to be able to speak freely,
We-
and someone here, there's, there are crazy people out there, might feel differently,
They
and
don't
I
live
don't
here.
want my address out there.
Yeah.
And next time,
So-
please listen.
No, and we can definitely appreciate that, because that was one of the things that came up in reference to the decision to move over to the cards.
Right.
Because if you're not comfortable stating your name and address in public, which I can 100% empathize, it solves that problem, because then we don't have to state
Because
the
then you just call the name
address.
off.
You just
Okay,
state the
so-
name and you state what the question is, et cetera. So for privacy concerns, I think that would help address that. And you do bring up a really good point that our Facebook page does not have to be ADA compliant, so maybe we can engage a high school student. We had talked about that at one
Community
point,
hours.
somebody with community hours that they
That's
need
I
to
think we'll have to
record
check on
it.
that, though, we'll have to check with council.
Maybe
and
we
make
can
sure.
take a look to
Right.
see if that's something we can explore. So just during some ideas out there. So we'll take a look at it. I think that's a good comment.
Can I just say that this is all very new technology, like this hasn't been going on for years and years, so this is all things that we're looking into. None of this is like a wall, but we have to really look at legal and everything else. It's not just like, just put it up there. There are things that a district has to consider, and I just wanna make sure everyone's aware of that.
We need to make sure that the district is legally protected no matter what we do. So you have to be very, very careful with all the different, especially when it comes to technology and what we put out there publicly. So we just need to 100% make sure before we make any change in that direction. But not that we're not listening, we think it's a good idea.
I think the brainstorming is great. If you'd like more information on making a YouTube channel, I'd be more than happy to walk you through how to do that. And I would welcome the board filming the meetings. We are not getting anyone behind. We don't want that either. But I have one follow-up question from the budget for Mr. McDade, and I thought you did a really nice job of walking everybody through the bond and talking about the interest rate. I wanted you to confirm the interest rate is 3.5%, correct?
Top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, it's either 3 or 3.5.
And when we talk about the new principal line item in the budget for this year, so the $750,000 was the new line item for this year. It wasn't last year, and that's because we only paid interest the first year. And so we won't see any change, but when we talk about the district collecting an extra $736,000 in property taxes from residents, that basically covered the principal payment, correct? So the increase we saw in our taxes this year basically covered that first principal payment.
In part, because we also allocated $390,000 from the debt service fund to help alleviate that too. So it wasn't all just the taxpayers last year.
And so are we putting money every year into the debt service
No,
fund?
it was only a one-time thing that we received when we received the bond payment. Number two, the reason why we did this, and it was discussed during the whole process, for the budget process, was the fact that we allocated that this year because we're anticipating getting $390,000 of state aid that'll cover the debt service fund. So when we go through the whole revenue portions of it, you'll see zero from the debt service next year, but the bond, the state aid increase will increase hopefully at least $390,000. That'll cover that for next year.
Okay, but we don't find out about the state aid until.
We won't find out till I think January.
Okay.
Is the last one I think the government puts out January 15th.
Thank you. Nice to hear.
Sorry not to talk, but definitely want to give you, come on up. We just had a real quick one.
Cindy, do we need to get release forms from any child? Because I know that, I'm a city teacher and we have to have release forms before we put any child on any social media whatsoever.
Right, we have those already on file.
Okay, great.
So then if we do have student performers, we would then go back to the schools and get those.
Okay, terrific, thank you.
So I just want to make sure that if there are any recordings of our meetings, to please be very careful with our students' privacies, and I'm sure
It
everybody's
gets
very
turned
careful.
off. We turned it off. We turned it off.
Okay.
When the
Thank you.
kids come up, they get turned off.
Thank you.
No, but kids, we can't have kids in there. We don't want kids.
Hi, thank you. Keith Levitt, 4153 Father Avenue. I have a question on the debt issuance. Who's the underwriter on that? The question on the debt,
Who's the
bond
underwriter?
issuance.
If you your name, and I can get back to you on that.
JP Morgan.
I'm not 100% sure right now.
Okay, great. Is that?
Yeah, if you make sure Joanne knows.
Okay, great. And then earlier, I apologize for shouting out, but somebody had mentioned about having a working discussion or session on the programs. When would that take place? And then what forum is that?
It's definitely going to be a public forum
Okay.
with the board members, the whole board in attendance. We're going to be there that day. The goal is to have every single board member there. So we need to coordinate everybody's schedules yet. We don't have it scheduled yet. Getting through the holiday season, so I would have to venture to guess it would be January. But what we will definitely do with all of our public meetings now, we are sending out the Connect Ed. Did you get the one for this meeting? So maybe what we can also do when you email Joanne in reference to the question that you had on the underwriter, make sure she has your contact information to sign up for the notifications through Connect Ed to make sure that you're receiving the proper notifications. So whenever we have budget meetings, work sessions, etc., you can definitely get all of those. So if anybody doesn't have it, by all means, please email Joanne, correct? You'll take those? Joanne Long, she'll make sure you get on that.
Okay, great, thank you. And I just one other question about the budget. Somebody had mentioned professional development as a line item. How much was that, and who in particular are we developing? Is that teacher development?
Yes, it's teacher development, and it comes out of that about 8.5% that's left of the budget after the salaries and the mandated insurance and the legal fees. And it goes along with our professional development that we provide to our teachers annually. And it's, again, professional development hours that they must have on an annual basis and be provided with. It's one of the other unfunded mandates that are put forth on school districts by the state education department. But at the same token, it really enhances our teachers and their craft and their expertise.
You said put forth by the state education department, so we're required.
We're required, yes, to provide professional development hours to our teachers.
But
And they don't give us any extra money for it.
They don't give you any.
Of course
And
not.
these teachers are part of the union though, correct? That
Yes.
collects dues and should presumably be able to provide professional development for them.
Well, actually, we have our teacher center here in North America. They also, our teacher center provides professional development to our teachers as well, and they work hand in hand with the school district based on what we feel are items and topics that should be provided in the form of professional development, whether it be for a new program or a mandate coming down, whether it be mental health, you know, things like that. So the teacher center works side by side with us as well.
Okay, thank you.
And that's grant funded.
Lori Silvati, Tulip Avenue. I guess a couple of follow-ups to that is,
Can
you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, we can, I just want to make sure everybody can hear you.
I just want to thank everybody again for their volunteerism to this community. It's appreciated. And Mr. McLeod, I just want to say thank you. He's always a wealth of information. Sometimes I know people come down hard on him with monies, but we do have to also take into consideration that it is a board's decision for some of these things, and I think that that's important to recognize. When talking about educating the public regarding the Connect Ed, I appreciate it. I think it's great, but now people have also moved on, and how are we getting that word out to the rest of the community and the taxpayers about these special meetings or when they're going to take place?
Through the website, there's the ability to sign up for all the notifications on there. So if someone doesn't have that, then they can email Joanne Long to get the information.
Is there any way you consider like putting it in the Herald or some type of paper for the older community that really is not as tech savvy?
I think it's an amazing idea. I just wonder about the cost.
Yeah.
A legal notice is so expensive.
I think if you ask them over there, and I certainly can ask you on your behalf, I have a connection there, I think they might even do it as a courtesy, and that can be a consideration.
I think Christina does as well. Maybe we can take a look into that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. As far as the professional development, can you tell me when that is done? Because I've worked in many different districts all across Long Island. I know every district is a little bit different. Is that something that's done during the school day or after school?
Both, actually.
Okay.
We have district professional development after school several times throughout the year, and then we have professional development during the school day as well.
So during the school day, are we paying subs for that?
Yeah, so we get reimbursed for those subs through both seats, actually.
Okay, is there a way that we can see monetarily wise how much that cost is and how much we're getting reimbursed? Is it dollar for dollar?
Tom loves that expression, dollar for dollar. It's his favorite thing in the whole world.
I'm 100% sure I can get back.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
Okay. And then also, when I heard you say something about confidentiality of contract negotiation, I actually know that that's an individual board decision, and I know Northport had actually opened their contracts up to the public, and I would just like, for you guys to consider doing more of a public contract negotiation. That is an individual board decision. It doesn't have to be confidential. So if you could get back to us, the community, I think that would be amazing, because it is public money, so we kind of the teachers' contracts and everybody's contracts end up on the website anyway after the fact. So I think it is something that the public is very interested in knowing where these monies are going, our tax monies. And then lastly, I heard, and this has been a concern, I have a son who graduated Fayette, is now in MAMS, loves it. But we are one of only 3 consortium districts in New York State. So much so that the system doesn't even work that well, that they no longer allow consortium districts in New York State. So I think maybe a consideration might be when it comes to calendars and things that put us under different strains or programs. South Merrick has free programs. We don't have anything free after school. Everything that we get home is something like jump bunch or this or that, and it's always like a paid for type of thing. And we do have very vast demographics now, and I just feel like our tax money is not being utilized, I don't believe, to the best of its abilities. We have nothing free for our children. What are we getting back for that tax dollar? So I guess what I'm asking is, and I know it's not, I'm not expecting an answer, but I think maybe if the superintendents could coordinate something, like, you know, the different programs, like we're all doing different math programs and then they come together in middle school and it's like everybody's doing the same thing. Or our children have a disadvantage because we don't have a language, but the other schools already start with a language. So it's like a mishmash, and I just wish that everybody could be kind of on the same page or coordinate a little bit, because what's happening is a lot of the taxpayers are talking about how do we consolidate administration to actually save us cost and make it more uniform, like a K through 12. So I'm not expecting an answer, I just, you know, would appreciate if we could kind of see if we can coordinate superintendent-wise programs, what we're doing for the children, so it's more.
And actually, can I give you some kudos here? Sure. Dr. Seniak has actually been looking into precisely that. So I do have to give her some major kudos on that. She's been
Please
very.
don't go say I'm looking to take over
No,
Central High School District. That'd be the next rumor out there.
I don't put words in anyone's mouth. It's just as you're, you know, when your children are finally going through things. And I did move here because I worked in the district and I loved it so much. But then when you finally see your children advancing through the programs and the differences, you're like, why can't we try to, you know, make it work a little bit better, a little bit more like a K through 12, and not this is North America, this is South. And now we have the middle school and high schools branched out a little bit.
Yep, and we can definitely empathize. We either have children from elementary about to go in or went in or graduating, so we've experienced that ourselves as well.
Great.
And then Dr. Seniak has been very collaborative with the superintendents of the other component districts, the elementary level as well as the high school level, so that there's some consistency. So you started to notice even the calendar now. We started the high school district. So now our children are no longer off different days than the high school district, which is fantastic. Thank you very much.
Not to know that I'm moving one child home and
So-
sending one to school.
Right. So it's moving in that direction. So thank you. We do appreciate that feedback.
Wonderful. So if you could get back to us about those questions or considerations, I would appreciate it. Thank you so
And
much.
I'd like to also recognize Mrs. Friedman in the articulation in the curricular areas. Not only vertical articulation with the secondary schools, but also the horizontal articulation with the component districts.
That's amazing.
And that's, you know, something that she spearheaded when I arrived here 2 years ago. And we really are looking at that consistency when it comes to content and skills, so that our children are all ready when they get to the middle school.
Because there are so many different, like I know there's another, like Dix Hills has what they call the World Language Program, and whatever languages they're offering at their middle school level, the children have an exposure to each language per quarter, and then they can kind of choose from there what their love was or what their passion was based on what they, so it's just something to.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane Kerper, Maple Place. Just quickly, I wanted to ask you a question, Ms. McKee, about considering all the new mental mandates that are coming down, and you know that they're requiring the school districts to implement. Is the state giving us more money towards that?
No.
No, nothing.
Not yet, at least.
Not
Hopefully
yet,
in
at
the new
least.
budget that they'll be presenting in January, there may be some allocations to that. We got to biggest cost, but we'll see.
So that would go if we did get it towards providing them with resources and stuff like
But
that.
Right, the unfunded mandates that go along with that are guidance counselor,
Right, yeah.
curriculum, resources.
Right, which they don't fund,
No,
they
it's
just mandate it.
Part of that list.
Part of that.
Funded, yeah.
Thanks.
Mary Keene, Sutton Place. Again, at the last board meeting, we heard about the NISBA Board of Ed conference that a few of the trustees and the superintendent were going to. So I just want some information with how many people stayed overnight, how many rooms, how much did that cost,
Cost me a lot.
how much was food, all that information, because we had, there was a discussion where some people were staying in the past, people didn't stay, they just went and came home, especially because thousands do it every day. So I also wanna know, how is that paid for? Does everybody use their own credit card and then they submit their receipts to the district? Or do they bring a check with them? I just want that information in terms of how things are paid for, how much money was spent. I mean, obviously, we all have budget on our minds, so that's an important question for me. Also, I was just at the work session prior, and the whole thing with the cards personally makes me very nervous because I'm someone who's pretty vocal, pretty critical. I ask a lot of questions, and I'm afraid that you're gonna pick and choose which cards are asked and answered. So I could write a question about the Charlie Brown Christmas tree that's been in front of Old Mill for the last 8 years, and that might be something you might address because it's part of a bond issue. But some of my other questions, which are a little bit more, I don't know, complex or however they're viewed. So I'm worried about sort of being quieted, honestly.
So you say all questions?
Yes.
Yeah, all questions,
All, yeah.
Yeah, that
So at the
absolutely
work
would not.
session, and at the high school level specifically said all questions were either answered or comments were still made. It was just a matter of getting up and having everybody's information. So that way, if there was an email like Mr. Ludwig who needs some email response, the information was already on there. And then the superintendent and president, if I'm not mistaken, right, just call an order.
To make sure that they're all addressed.
Right,
Yeah.
reflected twice.
The last thing we'd ever want to do is not answer public questions. We want to make sure everybody does get their answers back and gets them answered in an efficient and effective manner. So to answer the question in reference to who actually stayed over, because I know that did come up before. So there was only one room that was paid for by the district, and that was so our lovely Dr. Sanga could stay over. She attended all day sessions, did an event in the evening for us. It was amazing. The other board members who did stay over were Ms. Gordon and myself. That was not paid for by the district. I paid for that out of my own pocket, as well as all meals that we had incurred. We did go to the free continental breakfast, which I even missed a bagel, but I got coffee.
We'll pay our commuting costs, we'll pay for that
We all
by
paid for our own
ourselves.
expenses at that time.
Which will cost the district very little money.
Very little money this time, which was fantastic, so that was great. And then actually, I do want to thank you for bringing up the board expenses at the last meeting, because it stirred us to really look at how much money we've been spending as a board, because we do run such a tight budget, and we want to make sure that every dollar that we possibly can goes back to the kids. So we were able to actually look at some of the expenses from the board, such as from the previous years with meal expenses during meetings, etc., shave it down to 1 pizza pie or 2 pizza pies so we could run off the train and have a little something to eat. So we were able to save probably about $1,000 a year just based on that alone, and be able to repurpose that money towards something else. So it was definitely taken to heart. So I do thank the comments for that, so we were able to look at that. Some of the expenses in the past, so reimbursement, the usual way for reimbursement on expenses when it comes to board members, the policy states that we are supposed to do the expense and then submit an expense for reimbursement. What we did find out is it wasn't necessarily done in the past, so we're buttoning that up a little bit as well. Thank you.
Kathleen Wagner, 2060 Cameron. I have a question regarding third grade with the flexible seating, the active seating. For the students that are really, are we doing any research to see how it is working? Because there are many students who are really reaping the benefits of it, and studies show how it is increasing engagement in all classrooms. And right now, we're only offering it in the third grade, and these poor kids that are going to fourth grade, just moving one bicycle seat up to fourth grade, is not doing a service to all the kids, let alone the kids that it can do in second grade. There's a lot of research out there right now that is really showing that this is the way of the future and this is the way everyone's going. It's helping a lot of kids. So I just was wondering if we could talk to the teachers, talk to the staff, and see how is it really helping these kids. And see how if these poor kids just going to fourth grade is nothing, fifth grade nothing, and how we're spending the money, how we're really using the money on this equipment, and how to make it back to more people.
Just to give you a little background, when we purchased the furniture last year, it was because we had to actually replace traditional desks that were broken and unsafe, and we utilized that money differently, and we started with the third grade. Our budget did not support this year moving it up to fourth grade, but we did move a couple of pieces, and I know Mrs. Friedman meets with the teachers, and she also speaks to them about the benefits, as well as students that may not be benefiting from it, and that's why there are some traditional pieces in those third grade classrooms as well. But thank you for your comments and your feedback. We do appreciate that, and we'll keep you posted as we move forward. Thank you.
Very good. I know we ran a little bit late. I wanted to make sure we got everybody's questions and answers done. So that's a wrap. So do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.